All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today's special guest, I had the privilege of meeting and working with over a decade ago. But when I thought about industry professionals, I reached out and she immediately said yes. So I would like to welcome Dr. Angel S. Brooks to our chat today. And I'm going to give her a few minutes to tell you a little bit about herself and her background. And then we're going to jump into today's conversation. Go ahead, Dr. Brooks. Welcome.
Thank you so kindly for that nice warm welcome. I really feel welcome and I am willing to assist with the conversation to help all parents. But before we jump into the conversation, because it seems like I'm moving just a little fast here, I do want to introduce myself. My name again is Dr. Angel S. Brooks. I have been in education for over 20 years. I have a degree from Northern Illinois University. I started with the young babies, then moved to get a degree in reading to kind of understand reading. I have a degree in administration, and then I have a doctorate in ethical leadership. So I have worked in the classroom primary from pre-K, kindergarten, second grade, and I also adjunct on the college level. So I do have some sense of awareness of education and how it works and how our systems look from the starting to almost adult years. And then I'm a parent myself. I have 3 kids. I have a soon-to-be freshman, a 13-year-old, and a 7-year-old. So I'm able to see education kind of on both sides of the fence.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for taking this opportunity to talk with me and our community of care, which consists of parents or guardians. And one of the things I said in my initial video is that parents take many forms, whether you're a biological, bonus, godparent, grandparent. And you know this, being inside of the school setting, we see parents take many forms. And so as we have our conversation today, I'd like for you to speak from your expertise as an administrator. We know that as we have rounded out another school year, here in the middle of February, most schools around the country are ending or have ended recently. Can you just talk to us a little bit about what this past school year has looked like, in an effort to help us understand maybe what our children have experienced, whether physical learning or e-learning?
Absolutely. This school year has been totally different than what all of us educators, administrators, everyone in the educational system have ever experienced. In school, they don't necessarily prepare you for online learning with students. They prepare you for your practicums and your student teaching to actually physically be in the classroom. So when COVID first broke out, it was like, whoa, we're moving our whole classroom from inside a brick building to a laptop, a Chrome, hoping still at that point that we could reach all students. And as you know, anytime you move a practice, whether it's the emergency room, it's just like, how do you save lives when you're working in a parking lot and don't have all of your equipment? So that was always like my analyst of, what we were doing and trying to compare it. But as teachers, we rolled up our sleeves and we did what we felt like we had to do. From an administrator's perspective, had to make sure our teachers were okay because it was scary. It was frightening because everyone is not in the same technological area or arena that, some of the younger teachers working with, or just some of the teachers who might have had technology as an experience. So not only are they providing education through a computer or a Chromebook or an iPhone, an iPad, whatever device was first available, but they had to also learn the technology that came with it, whether that was Google Classroom, whether that was Canvas, whether that was Seesaw, Class Dojo. It was just a whole lot more components to that. And then you're talking about all households did not have internet. All households did not have a device for kids to connect on or log on so they can meet their teachers and be a part of it. So teachers really had to dig deep and districts had to find money. And I'm so glad that the government provided money so we could purchase Chrome, so we could have that one-to-one with the Chromes in the household so our kids could connect. But once they connected, you had to teach them also pre-K, kindergarten, the tech skills that came with this technology piece. Then once you had all of those together and working in a form of a way to meet your students, you had to keep them engaged, because as you know, and I know, sitting in front of a device all day trying to learn math and trying to read is totally different from being in the classroom. But once we were able to grasp all of that and take a deep breath and, dive right into it and engage students, that's when learning really took place. So the pandemic really brought a different way of teaching, a different way of really utilizing technology, because in the classroom, we've used it, but not to the degree that we're using it now. So it's taught our babies a lot of skills. I mean, even if we don't really look at all the education they've learned education in different ways, because education is just not going to school, read and write, and education incorporates life skills. So they've learned to persevere, because if my internet wasn't correct, or if my internet I couldn't hear, or if I felt like I didn't want to do it, I still had to get up and log on to be connected. So I had to persevere. And perseverance goes beyond school. Perseverance goes when you're older and there's some difficulties in your life and you want to throw in a towel. You just want to quit. But then you remember, I can't quit this race. I have to continue the race. So you have to persevere. So there are so many other skills that the kids have learned that are going to make them lifelong learners, that they're used later in life. And sometimes skills that we pick up along the journey, we don't use right away. And we don't know why we're learning or going through what we're going through, but we realize all those skills later when the puzzles come together. It's because it's like we have different pieces of the puzzle. So when the puzzle comes together, they'll be like, oh, that's why that happened. And that's why that happened. And now I'm able to connect the different pieces.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. You said something that all my bells and whistles went off when you used the term persevere. And I say that because as we think about this past school year and even the year before, you've heard a lot on the news about people in different aspects of politics or education talk about our children are going to be behind. Our children are going to be behind. And when you mentioned perseverance, one of the things that I thought about was Paul Tough has this book called How Children Succeed. And when he did the research, what they found was, and again, you know this from being in pre-K for many, many years, is it's those character skills that are just as much an indicator for academic success, if not more so at times, than the academic content in and of itself. So can you just talk to parents that are sitting here like, you know what, they didn't get a chance to be in a physical school environment this year. My child is going to be so behind. Maybe you can just touch on what are those character skills that I should be looking at and really applauding my child? Because we know we have children that maybe are what are considered overachievers, or your quote unquote average child, or even your child with a diagnosed learning disability. Regardless of where our children fall on the spectrum, what can we look at as like a glow for this school year that I as a parent can help celebrate my child?
I think listening to that question, we could look at, first of all, kids are resilient. Kids, they keep going, they persevere, even when we feel like we want to throw in the towel. So I think it's really important how we carry ourselves, what we do in front of our kids, because they read from our body language and they pick up on our vibes of how we feel about different situations. But kids are willing to learn. It's just like they have something inside of them that they want this knowledge. They can't wait to get the knowledge. So just encouraging them that they're going to be fine, they can make it. And sometimes we can't look at their negativity or the things that they don't have. Let's put an emphasis on what they do well. Or like example, oh, Johnny, you're such a smart little guy. You are really good with helping mommy take the garbage out, or doing your chores around the house, or sitting down and listening, or reading that book. Focus on the good things and the positive things and allow everything else to come together. Because kids, even in the classroom, they develop skills at different levels. So you may have someone reading all the way on the high level and someone in the middle, but it's developmentally appropriate when it's ready for them. And as parents, sometimes we can hinder them because we compare them. Don't compare Johnny to Angela. They're two different individuals. They learn in different ways, and they will get the information they need. So just thinking about the whole pandemic, think about the life skills that you have incorporated or that you can incorporate. Even from a parent stance, I have a 6-year-old who's turning 7 and he does laundry. He started maybe a year or two ago because I was like, he knows his colors. How many piles do you really need for laundry? So he sorts his clothes by himself and he does his color pile, his dark pile, and his white pile. He's too short to reach the washing machine and put the soap in. So I help him with those components, but he sorts those clothes. He puts them in the washing machine. When they're done, he puts them in the dryer, takes them upstairs, and then I'll put them up for him. So there's so many other skills that we can focus on to help our babies, even with cooking. I mean, measurement. Think of the mathematical skills that are included when you're baking a cake or when you're cooking from a recipe, to read the recipe, to measure out, to make sure you're mixing it. Just the conversations that you can have when you're doing those different skills, because vocabulary is everything. And then you can go back and ask some comprehension questions. What was the first thing we did? What was the second ingredient? How did we put it together? And they can even write about it, or they can just have conversations about the skills that they're doing, which will all come together once again to help within their learning.
Okay. I don't know if you can tell or not. I am literally jumping out of my skin right now because you are truly, oh my goodness, you're just making my heart smile with everything that you're saying right now. Because I think as parents, we're always worried, did my child get enough? Do they know enough? Are they going to be behind? And what I love about what you were saying is you didn't mention go out and buy a subscription to an academic anything. You didn't talk about go out and buy a workbook or print out these worksheets. Basically, what you're saying is, as parents, we can take everyday authentic activities and incorporate learning so that they're not losing any skills per se, but we're showing them how to incorporate them into their everyday lives. And I love that because, again, I can say, even though I homeschool my children, I have felt the pandemic as well, because we haven't been able to go out and do a lot of the engaging activities with other homeschoolers that we normally do. And so one of the things that I can even attest to is doing the hands-on activities of measuring out things, checking the temperature, looking at the time it takes to cook. You realize that there's math and science all around us. There's reading all around us. And so I love what you're saying, because what I think I hear you saying is don't get bogged down with the technical components of trying to catch your children up over the summer, but just take actual moments and enjoy them and incorporate learning into that. Is that what, am I correct?
Absolutely. Oh, you're so right, because the hands-on, the engagement from a mother or a dad in the household and other siblings can do so much for a child. You could play Uno. Think about all the steps you have when you're doing Uno. You're doing number recognition. You're doing color recognition. You have to comprehend what a draw two means, a wild means, a reverse, a skip, the order of the game, the conversations that comes with it. There are so many things that you can do inside the household to make sure learning continues. Now, is it the same as the classroom? No, but learning is learning, whether you're in the classroom, whether you're in the park, whether you're at home playing a game, the rules, the hands-on, all the different activities and conversations that come from it is so important for our kids.
Awesome. Awesome. Oh, that's great. So now let's talk about the next steps as we're going forward, preparing for the upcoming school year. And I know nobody really wants to think that far in advance, but as we know, as educators and even as parents, that summertime seems to fly right past us and we're back in school again. Can you just speak from an administrator standpoint of view of what you want parents to know, or what we as parents should be looking for, or conversations that maybe we should have with our administrators if we have concerns about our children, even understanding, I haven't had the privilege of being in an administrator role, but I know, most schools have hundreds of students, which means hundreds of parents. And, oftentimes if I come in, I'm just thinking about me and my child and what the next steps are. But maybe you can talk to us from an administrative standpoint of view of, okay, as we we're working with our children throughout the year. And then as we begin to get ready for next school year, from an administrator standpoint of view, what can you help us think about, prepare for with our children?
To help prepare to enter to our new school year, it's still going to look a little different because we're still not back or out of the COVID era yet, but we are getting back to a sense of normalcy. So I guess the first thing is, if your child have not been in school, make sure they understand and realize the importance of wearing a mask in school, making sure they know the safety procedures of washing their hands, and just make sure they're comfortable entering the school building if they haven't been all year. Usually they are, because they're kids. They're resilient, they conform, they do what they're supposed to do and what's necessary. But that's just on the safety precautions. As far as learning, just do what you do any other year. Wish them well for the school year, talk to them, let them know they're going to return to school, they're going to learn. And sometimes as parents, we take for granted that kids need to realize the importance of education. So as you send your kids to school, make sure they realize why they're in school, what to look for in school, and why is school and education so important? Because those conversations should really start in the house. So when they enter our buildings, behaviors are together, they're ready to learn, they understand the why behind education and why they're in school to learn. And while they're in school learning, they need to know, ask questions. Sometimes we have our quiet kids or our kids who just don't want to talk or ask questions, but there's no right or wrong answer. And if you don't understand something, how would they ever understand if they don't ask that question? It's the simple question that sometimes clicks all the information together. So explain the importance of asking questions. And as parents, make sure you know you're your child's advocate. You're your child's first teacher, even though kids are entrusted to come to school and we have our teams at school, but you're your child's first advocate. So if you notice something's wrong with your child or something's not going to the way that you want it to go, to make connections at the school, be visible, talk to the teachers, talk to the principals, talk to the teams who are in school, because really we're in this all together. We're a village. And if some of the village is not functioning well, then that's a part of the system that's not working cooperatively together to make sure everything is coming together. So no, be there, be engaged, make connections, communicate. Communication is number one. Usually our teachers communicate to parents, but parents, if you have questions, you reach out, you call the office, you email, whatever it needs to be, because we're looking at this from an educator and assistant principal that pretty much we realize our babies have been out for a year. We realize the ones who have come in, they picked up some of the skills, the ones who have been home, learning through a computer. How can you really learn everything you need when you're looking at a screen and you don't have the expert there to really guide and help you? So we realize that. So we're looking at skills, we'll probably be assessing, grouping, and really making sure we're providing the kids with the necessary skills they need to catch up.
Thank you. And speaking of communication, I know that I have worked in environments with individuals that haven't always felt like their voices were heard. So as a parent, I don't really know what my rights are. I don't really know who to turn to or how to turn to. As an administrator, can you just give me some tips even on navigating that? Because again, we know this past year and a half has been challenging for everybody. And so we all may be coming back with a little more heightened sense of whatever it is we've been dealing with individually. So if I'm reaching out to my administrator, if I'm reaching out to the schools, the educator or whomever within the school environment, and I'm not feeling like I'm being heard, what would you suggest that I do?
I would suggest you keep reaching out. I would suggest sometimes maybe be patient and ask the administrator or the teachers, maybe at parent-teacher conference or a little bit before, to compare the growth, because sometimes in the classroom we see kids' growth differently because they perform differently in the classroom environment versus at home. So maybe try to look at the data, because data is always important, and share that data and be open and willing to have those tough conversations with the school just to see how we can all get on the same accord, because it is a process like anything else. So just because at times you feel like you've not been heard doesn't mean we're not hearing you. It just means we have to cross our T's and dot our I's as well and go through our formalities of what we need to do. And is this child really, really behind, or is this child just a little bit? And with the right interventions, with the right groupings, with the right educational formalities in the classroom, we bring that kid up to where that child is supposed to be. So make sure you're really listening to the why behind the process isn't moving, or how is the process moving? Because sometimes as parents, we really want the best for our kids, and we know that and we get that. And from administrators and teachers, we want the best too. We want everyone to succeed and everyone to learn, but it's a process. And just because you feel your child is really, really behind, when we look at the child and the different tests, or all the data that we compiled in the school, we might say, well, yeah, little Johnny is a little behind, but he's not really as behind as what you think. This is what we're doing, and this is how we're supporting to make sure he has what he needs. So sometimes it's not that you're not being heard, it's just the process that we have to go to and make sure you have those conversations, because when we have those conversations, we find out exactly what's happening and why I feel like this is not working.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for your input. I really appreciate what you have shared with us today. First and foremost, about how as parents, we can take a deep breath. We don't have to stress about our children as much. Understanding, one of the things that I've tried to subscribe to is our children are exactly where they need to be to get to where they need to go. Specifically because of what you said, because they're resilient and they've learned so many more lessons about life, about grit, about perseverance, about resilience, about those skills that may not seem important to them right now, but what we as adults know are those skills that are going to take them into college and on in throughout their life as an adult in general. As someone that works in the institution for higher learning, one of the things that I tell people is it's not necessarily how smart a person is that's going to make sure that they're able to be successful navigating higher learning or even life. It's those character skills that our children have had to learn. And a lot of them have had to learn these lessons a lot earlier because like you said, whether it was internet connections not working, technology malfunctioning, and the fact that they were still able to be resilient, the fact that they were still able to persevere and to get up and keep showing up every day. Parents, I just encourage you to celebrate your children this summer. As Dr. Brooks has mentioned, as I am saying, just celebrate their successes and take those regular, everyday, mundane tasks and incorporate learning into that. So again, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Brooks, for your time. I appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Sounds good. You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.